So we're going to focus on the time period of the Renaissance, which is 1500 to 1600. And this was a time of change and continuity. And we're going to start off by thinking, right, what did people think caused disease in the Renaissance times? And the answer is the same as what they did in medieval times. Punishment from God, astrology, superstition, four humours, but it started to move away from the four humours slightly, and miasma. Miasma, that started to go to the top of the list as basically the position of the church started to change. So basically, when we're talking about what stayed the same, is people had the same ideas of what caused diseases, but just the order of them and the emphasis of them changed slightly. Ideas were changing. So what started to change? People started to challenge the ideas of the church as the church was losing influence and science was gaining influence. So what we see is a shift. No longer is it entirely. The church is still really, really important, but other stuff is starting to sneak in. Miasma was still strongly believed to be the cause of illness. So we do see ideas starting to change slightly. What is changing massively is communication. So what we see is the development of the printing press, and you've got a picture of the printing press there in 1440. And because you are no longer handwriting every book out, you can get these new ideas printed up and circulated, meaning the books in the library were modern books. The books in the library had modern diagrams. The books that doctors were studying were more up to date, and this would help the spread of new ideas massively. You also have the spread of pamphlets and journals and new discoveries that allows the communication of new ideas across the world. We also see the setting up of the Royal Society in 1660. Now, the Royal Society is a group of scientists who all meet up and discuss ideas. This gets everyone excited about science, and they write journals and they talk about their findings. Again, this helps things to move things on. So when we're talking about communication, you could talk about the printing press, 1440, helped the spread of new ideas. Can you think of any new books that were written in that time period? But also you can talk about the setting up of the Royal Society, a society for scientists to talk about new ideas in 1660. We didn't have any individuals in medieval times, but in Renaissance times we did. And there's three we need to get stuck in our heads. So the first guy here, you've got a picture of him here, is Thomas Sydenham. Thomas Sydenham. Thomas Sydenham. And Thomas Sydenham was a doctor, and the way he did things was a little bit different and a little bit good. So he was around in the 1660s and 1670s, and he did something very new, is he actually observed the patient's symptoms. He didn't just give them a cure based on his little book. He actually observed patients carefully and used scientific observations. He wrote a book called Observationes Medicae in 1676. And this book outlined his theories and observations, which were good. He had a new idea that the disease had nothing to do with the person who had it. The disease was a disease, and he started putting diseases in little categories and finding out more about them. And he basically decided individually to do treatments based on the disease. So this is moving us more into what we would go and expect from the doctors today. He became known as the English Hippocrates due to his influence on doctors. So he was a really good doctor who used scientific method to observe patients, and he observed patients on what he was seeing rather than, the colour of their wee or other strange things there as well. So Thomas Sydenham is the first chap you have to get in your head. Now, this next chap was Andreas Vesalius, and he is really influential and a big building block to changing things in medicine. Now, he improved the understanding of the human body, and he dissected bodies to study anatomy. And after he dissected them, he did these careful diagrams, and he proved some of Galen's work as incorrect. He encouraged other people to do dissections, and he wrote a book of his findings called The Fabric of the Human Body in 1543. So Andreas Vesalius was anatomy, he used dissection, he proved some of Galen's work wrong, and he wrote a book, Changing Medicine, Making Medicine Better. And last but not least is William Harvey. Now, he researched some of Vesalius' ideas further and proved even more of Galen's ideas wrong. He discovered that blood flowed around the body one way, and he proved that blood could not be produced in the liver. And he proved that the heart is a pump. Now, this is hugely important because he's proving how things work that are accurate. And basically, this is answering questions and proving Galen wrong and being more accurate about what the body actually works like. So Harvey is the last of our individuals. Right, when we're talking about prevention, treatment and care, not a lot changed at all. You got a picture of a plague doctor there. Ideas remained quite simple, and although these individuals are starting to find out more, most things stay very similar. Hospitals, they start to not be so much controlled by the church because the monasteries were closed, and hospitals now were set up as charity. So we see a little bit of a change there. Later on in this period, you see hospitals are starting to be run by physicians, so that it's moving more towards treatment. They're still rubbish, still very rubbish. Ooh. Most people are still being cared for in the home, and there's more emphasis, in prevention on removing miasma, cleaning the streets and stuff there. You've got this theory of transference as a new treatment, and that is the idea that rub objects on yourself and that will get the disease to go on the object. A load of rubbish. And you have alchemy caused chemical cures using metals or minerals. They became popular. So we don't see much moving on in prevention, treatment and care. Everything else is the same. Now, case study, the plague came back in the Renaissance, and we see the Great Plague of 1665. Now, everyone still believed it was caused by the same things, but miasma went to number one in the spots. So they still thought it was God and superstition and four humours and miasma, but miasma was the thing that they were believing the most. What is different is they're believing it's passed on from person to person. So we're seeing a shift there. The treatments are still all the same, but this idea of transference is different, rubbing things on the buboes. What is a little bit different in this outbreak is the government did more, and we see the government being more proactive in cleaning up the streets and trying to stop it, and you see quarantines and watchmen, etc. So our case study of the Great Plague shows that although things were starting to change, it wasn't showing much yet.